Right, I was waiting to talk to you guys for that, because I don't know what's available, and then I want to give them some heads up. And I haven't talked to them. I did, I talked to them and said, once I find out what dates are available, I'll let you know when your inspection is.
The time is 4:30 p.m. The Pelican Rapids City Council meeting of 13 September 2022 is called to order. Just from information, during this council meeting, we're going to have 3 public hearings. So that'll take place at 5 o'clock and 2 approximately 6 o'clock. If you have not signed in, there's a clipboard by the back door. If you would sign in before you leave and ask everybody to put their phones on vibrate. Roll call members, Danielle.
Councilmember Steve Strand.
Here.
Councilmember Kevin Ballard.
Here.
Councilmember Kurt Markgraf.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Foster.
Here.
And Mayor Brent Frazier.
Here. I want to welcome each and every one of you here in the council chambers this evening, also those that are joining us by Zoom. And remember, you can see our city council meetings on the City of Pelican Rapids YouTube channel and also on channel 14 on Wednesday evening. Just a couple announcements for the next couple of weeks. Wednesday, September 21st, 10 to 11 a.m. at Historic City Hall is Conversations with the Mayor. That was moved up 1 week. Our next city council meeting is Tuesday, September 27th at 4:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. Any other announcements? Any other announcements? Hearing none, if you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2 is citizens' comment. Anyone here for citizens' comment on a subject that is not on the agenda? Anyone? Okay, seeing none. Item number 3 is additions and deletions to the agenda. I have one addition. Item number 17 is Pelican Rapids Department of Motor Vehicle. Pelican Rapids Department of Motor Vehicle. Item number 17.
Move to approve the agenda with the addition.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 4 is approval of consent agenda. Item number 4A is approval of council minutes from August 30th, 2022. Item 4B is approval of accounts payable listing. We'd also like to add the public library bill listing that was on your desk this evening with that accounts payable listing. Item number 4C1 is financial report, which is in the packet, and 4C2 is police report, which is in the packet. And 4D is certified to property taxes, property 211 Southeast 4th Street, water and sewer, an amount of $206.01. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Must be a second. There.
Second.
Motion. Discussion.
Can we remove police report?
Okay. That's okay with you, gentlemen?
Yep.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the police report?
So moved. Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Then we'll go to item number 4C2, police report.
How's staffing, the hiring process going? How's that?
We have 2 applicants at this point in time.
And can we have one position that we're trying to fill or 2?
This time, we one for sure, and then go from there.
Okay. I saw that there was, on the comp time, that it was 172, just about 173 hours of comp time. I'm assuming that's because you were working for, we had a guy that was sick or something like that?
Yeah.
At what point do we maybe consider contracting with the county to take up some of that extra time? I mean, would that help? Would that be worth it or not?
I don't know if it's possible. It's something we could always check into, but I know when Jeff was out for a while and we were trying to get the county, or we did work with the county to cover a few shifts, I know they're short. I don't know if Jeff would have a better idea how short they are.
Yeah, they're still a little short, and they're hiring too, so they're in the process.
And we could always ask the question to see if that's possible, but I don't know that we'd get a very good reception of the idea.
Are the two that have applied, are they potential or are they?
Possible, yeah. We haven't even talked to them, so.
Okay.
We just got the applications and things like that, so.
Yeah, we haven't even really reviewed and sat down and looked at the apps. We just know that two came in.
All right.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, then we'll need a motion to approve item number 4C2 police report.
I move to approve consent agenda 4C2.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. Let's jump down to item number 6, horse parade. We have Audrey Wyfall with us here this evening, and she is going to talk about the horse parade and explain the route. Correct, Audrey?
I am asking that we have the street closed from probably 5 to 7 during the November 25th, the night of the horse parade, blocked off from stoplight to stoplight. It's easier for the Teamsters to get around. We've done it in the past years. So, and as far as the route, Brian is going to give you the route.
Yes, the route is exactly the same as last
Could
year.
you
You want me to
use the
stand up?
Yeah, please.
Because you can hear me. Yeah. The route is exactly the same as last year. They'll start behind the fire hall on the elevator property, come up to 3rd Avenue Southwest, cross 59, go up to 2nd Street Southeast, all the way down to 1st Avenue, and then they'll climb up to 2.5 Street and come down 108. Come down 108 to 59, up to 3rd Avenue, which is just south of City Hall here. And they'll go around, and then they'll continue down back on 59 to the elevator where they'll end. So it's similar as we did last year. And, not a whole lot of, we just put some signs out for them, and that was about it. So we're good.
Okay. Chief Statham, did you have anything to add?
No, I think sounds good.
Yeah. Council?
No questions?
I move to approve. Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. Thank you, Audrey, for all your work with that. Appreciate it. Okay, let's jump back up to item number 5, library report. We have Chair Wayne Runnigan from the library board with us this evening. And there were minutes on your desk this evening when you arrived.
Engineer and council, we had our meeting last evening, so that's why we didn't get things in here earlier, because due to the holiday, we had to move our meeting to last evening. Besides what you have in front of you, we received a report from the Friends of the Library, and they had a very successful tablescapes fundraiser last weekend, and their donations from the book truck sales and the tablescape fundraiser will be used to purchase materials for the children's section of the library, and that's normally the money that they raise all summer long for the book truck, and tablescapes goes to the children's section of the library. So we really thank them and appreciate all that they do for the library. It's a lot of time and a lot of dedication from a lot of people. So good support from them. We also passed the material selection policy, and that was a draft of the meeting before, and we passed it last evening. We also passed a new cell phone and personal electronic device use policy that we hadn't had before, just because of those devices are being used all the time now by everyone. So we developed a policy for that and passed that last night. And the library board also received the first draft or the first reading of the procedures for handling formal complaints policy, which will be considered again at the October library board meeting. And that has to do with the material selection policy that we passed also. If somebody complains about a certain book at the library, we have a policy and a system to address that, so it's all spelled out. That's the need for that, and there's a lot of that going on in the country right now. People are challenging books in libraries, so it's important that we're up to date on that. We discussed the meeting that Dave Godborg and Cheryl Brenna had with the City Council Budget Committee. And it was noted in our discussion that the general fund draft budget, which you're going to look at tonight, includes $4,250 for inflation. However, at this time, we didn't see any additional funding added for the 2023 COLA increases to the library wages. It's noted, but there wasn't an increase for that. We also informed the library board that board member Mary Williams submitted her resignation due to personal family members that or family matters that she's dealing with, and she really felt that she had to resign at this time, but she offered that down the road, if things change, she would be willing to come back. And I did inform the mayor of that August 23rd, so he's aware of that, since he's the one that would select a new member. We also discussed a patron letter regarding the condition of the exterior library gardens. Each board member received a letter regarding the gardens outside, and the discussion that we had, the board agreed that the gardens are the responsibility of the city, but we did acknowledge that there is a need, to do something with the gardens outside. So with that, if you have any questions regarding anything?
Any questions for Mr. Rennigan?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I have one question. In your bylaws, the order of business, item number 6 says foundation update, and there's never that in the agenda.
We don't have a foundation update very regular, because they only meet 2 times a year. So it's there so that it can be updated, but they only meet twice a year. And normally that's, during that foundation discussion, we have to make a request as a library board to the foundation for any monies that we want from them. We have to, as a board, request that, and then they would look at it at their board meeting and decide whether they would give us funding or not. But it's not a regular update that we receive, because they only meet twice a year.
Yeah, that answers my question. Any other questions for?
The foundation, local people? I mean, is it?
Yep. I think right now Lloyd Nelson is the chair. There's one library board member, which is myself, the library director, and then there are 3 other people that are local. Right now they're all city residents, so they're appointed by it's a committee, because West Central Initiative Fund holds all our funds for the foundation. And they're an advisory committee to the West Central Initiative Fund, so they can make requests, but they have to fit the parameters of what the foundation was set up for. And West Central actually decides if they'll disperse the money or not. And that's usually not a problem because it all has to be spent for the library. So there's just different funds that are part of that foundation. Some can't be used. Some of it is a perpetual fund that has to stay there all the time. So I think the interest can be used, but so it's not an elected, it's elected by the committee itself. They appoint, but I think their bylaws state that it's the library director and one library board member. And I'll be going off this year, so they'll have to choose somebody new from the library board, but
Any other questions? If not, thank you. Item number 7 is 2023 Home and Garden Show, and there's a handout in your package. Remember, we talked about this at our last council meeting. And to get the early bird special of $870, we have to submit this by September 16th, this week. And there was talk about this at the last meeting, and Judy Cabot was present, and she was gonna do some scouring throughout the community to see if she could find some volunteers to work. Judy?
Judy Cabot, Merchants on the Move, Moving Back, and we didn't have a lot of members there that day. Sometimes we're as many as 10, but there was a small number of us, and really felt that it was important to be part of this home and garden show. It is a promotion of Pelican Rapids, and I have contacted some people. Most people thought that by the dates in February, it was pretty far out to say they could commit to it. Okay, so, but there are some people that are interested in looking at that. And I guess I believe that if you're gonna hire an economic development person, that would be one of the things that that person would want to be involved in.
So you would recommend we move on?
Yes. Yeah, that's what the Merchants on the Move, but we're only a committee in town that tries to do a lot of stuff.
Council questions, comments?
Would the merchants be supplying the people to man this thing?
They're trying to find people, yes.
Is the early bird fee refundable? Or is it non-refundable?
I don't know if I know that, to be honest.
It is non-refundable.
Non-refundable?
Okay. Well, for discussion, I'll make a motion. We do participate in the 2023 Red River Valley Home and Garden Show. Second?
No second.
Motion second. No discussion?
Well, I think you and I are the only ones that have ever, from the council, have ever sat on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I know you have for sure, yeah.
So
I plan on doing it again this year.
I question how much benefit Pelican Rapids gets from this, so.
Yeah, I think it's hard to put a pencil to that. It's just the publicity or name out there in the public in the Fargo-Moorhead area. I know last year and previous years, people that have come through the booth, most of them had visited here, they have relatives here, they plan on visiting here the following year. So it's a PR tool.
The comment the merchants had was because the bike trail is new, that it would be important.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion?
Well, Judy's gonna find the workers, so we're good.
What?
I'm trying.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Judy. Let's go all the way down to item number 11, Street and Park Report. We have Superintendent Brian Olson with us this evening.
Up here again. The street side of things, it was kind of we had that water main break last winter and then got that fixed, but it was hard to find asphalt. And so I finally found asphalt last week, so that was a kind of a relief, and fortunately enough, we got the Ridgecrest one done all at the same time. So those patches are done. Obviously, several of you asked about the seal coat project. That is actually getting closer to winding down than starting. That started yesterday, and by the end of the week, they should have the fog seal on top of the rock, which kind of seals down that rock, and it evidently gives the street a longer life. So that we'll see some more action on that this week. One thing I forgot to mention to you last month when I was here is we finally got our new plow truck. After almost 2 years since we ordered it, finally picked it up. And so if you've seen, we have our 1999 for sale on bids, and you can get information from City Hall if anybody has questions on that. So we'll be selling that, and the new truck is all ready to go, so we just got to get the decals on it. So our annual sewer jetting will begin hopefully if schedule goes right, next week. It'll probably take 3 to 4 weeks to continue, so you'll see the truck around, trailer around. People maybe ask you why they get pressure in their toilets, and that happens when you're doing this because we're cleaning and try to prevent it, but it still happens. And then semi-annual hydrant flushing is October 2nd. From 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. We generally actually wrap up with that about 1:30, but if we have any issues, it'll run until 3 or when we're done. So, and that's inclement weather. Our alternate date is always the week after. So just, it'll be seen in the paper and in other places too. So, parks are kind of winding down. We still have a few campers coming into October. We usually try to keep that open until after Oktoberfest, because we usually have a bunch that camp there for that. So usually middle of October. So and it's been pretty busy this year. I haven't gotten the numbers from City Hall here yet, but when it closes down, I will certainly do that. And the Northwest Park is open it's all ready to go. Kids are playing on it. Kids are doing whatever they do. We're just in the process of putting some benches around up there that can't get cedar boards to put in until maybe tomorrow. It's just one of those things. So
Ryan, does that park have a name?
it does not have a name. The park board was going to do something at the school to have them choose a name. So I still refer to it as Northwest Park or Baptist Park, with whatever it's over there. So that's what I have tonight. If anybody has any questions or anything.
What section of the city's hydrant flushing going to go on this? The whole city or just?
Citywide, yep.
Citywide.
Yep. Start at the north end, work to the south, and then the neighborhoods. Usually in the northeast about 9:30, I suppose, if not a little before.
Do I hear a motion to approve the?
So moved.
Park?
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. And you also had trail funds.
I do, yes. That I am. We had some money in the trail fund this year that hasn't been spent, and I would like to spend some of that money, roughly $5,000-6,000, on getting the Barkwoods land that we obtained cleaned up, and so we can start leveling or doing what we need to with that. I'll hire somebody to come in and brush it and haul the brush out, and then we can start filling it in and getting it level and hopefully usable sooner than later. So that's what I'm asking for with that.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion second, discussion?
We have enough in the trail funds to cover that?
Yes, there's 10,000 in that budget, so.
Discussion? Discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on to item number 12, West Central Initiative 2023 funding request. Don, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, this was in your packets. West Central Initiative sent a letter basically explaining the benefit of West Central Initiative, how they've used the funds that have been donated, how Pelican, Rapids, and Ottawa County in general have benefited from it. The second page of that was a request for donations from Pelican, and this is actually the 5th year of a 5-year agreement that we got into back in, I think it was 2019. And based on, I think it was 2020, they came back and asked if the city would increase it $250 one year and then $250 the next year, which would have put it at $2,500. And so in 2023, it would have been $2,500. But they, in light of inflation and everything else too, they asked if the city would consider increasing that to $250. So you see the request on the letter is for $2,750 as opposed to the $2,500. And if the council is fine with that, we can sign this off and get it back to them. They said if the council wants to stick with the original $2,500 agreed to, that's still under that 5-year thing, then we could just change the number to $2,500 and then sign off on it. But considering it's only $250, it's not that much of a big deal.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion second, discussion? Discussion?
What are we doing here?
So what you'll end up doing is you'll be giving them $2,750 for 2023 instead of $2,500. And then they'll, I'm sure, sometime in 2023, before the 2024 budget, they'll come back with a new, assuming a 5-year proposal for the next 5 years. So you're giving them $2,750 instead of $2,500.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, we still have a few minutes. Let's go down to item number 17, Pelican Rapids Department of Motor Vehicles, or DMV. Don?
Yeah, I put this in front of you. I've been working with a couple of individuals for, I think, 2 years now. It's unbelievable how slow this has went through the state, but it's opening a deputy registrar office in Pelican Rapids, or a DMV in Pelican. And part of the process to do this is that when somebody, a private individual, like in this case, wants to open an office, they have to submit an application to the state. And the state then reaches out to the county and the city in which these individuals want to open this private business to make sure that neither one of those governmental entities want to run one. And so they reached out to the county. Ottawa County took whatever actions they needed to, replied to the letter saying, no, we're not interested in opening it or running one, operating one, and so they give the opportunity to Pelican Rapids. So that letter that I gave you a copy of basically is the letter that we got, just explaining the process and a little bit about what's going on, and then saying, you know, Pelican, if you want to run one, let us know. And of course, it's up to the council, but I did take the liberty on the second page of what you've got is drafting a letter that I need you guys to read through real quickly and then approve, denying or basically saying that the city respectfully declines to do it. And when we send this back to the state, it moves this process forward, and if everything falls into place, it's possible that we would hopefully have hopefully have a DMV office in Pelican by the end of the year. There's a lot more that has to happen, but these individuals had a building rented, hoping that this process, which was only supposed to take 90 days, got done and they'd be open already, but obviously it's taken a couple of years. But I've talked to them, I've kept them updated on all of this, and they're still interested. When this goes back to the state, if we decline, they'll be getting something saying, you know, your application's been accepted and you can move forward, and then they'll just have to find a place and open it up. And it'll be a private business, so. So any questions, or if you wanted to take a minute and read through that draft of what I wrote? And I can make any changes to it or whatever. If it sounds good, just prove it. Or if you want to open and run a office as a city office, we can talk about that too.
I move that we approve the prepared letter declining the city running a DMV office in Pelican.
I'll second.
Motion second. Discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Anything else on that line, Don?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, the time is 5:01 PM. We're going to recess our city council meeting. We're going into agenda item number 8, public hearing regarding the city hall sale. I know we have Jade from Larson Funeral Home with us here in the council chamber this evening, and I think we have Chris Smith from Verton Funeral Home on Zoom.
Yes.
Good evening, Chris.
Evening, council.
Okay, we'll go into this public hearing, and if there comes time, we'll call on the audience here at City Council chambers if they have comments or questions. Don, do you want to introduce this as a whole?
Sure. Basically, the council obviously is aware that, or for the public's benefit too, that we've been talking with Verton Funeral Homes regarding the idea of them acquiring the upstairs, or another option would be the whole property that the city hall sits on, for them to relocate the funeral home into this location, either just upper floor or the whole, well, they would use the upper floor, but there was another option of them acquiring the whole property and city hall staying here for a period of time. One of the things that I'm showing on the screen was the original proposal that Mr. Smith had presented to the council a while back, just for the council's benefit of reference or whatever. And so the purpose of the public hearing, well, the last time the council talked about this, they decided they wanted to hear what the residents of Pelican had to say about the idea, and so that's why the public hearing was set, and that's where we're at today, is basically allowing the public to express their thoughts on the for the council to consider, and then council would go from there on what they would like to do.
Mr. Smith, if we decline the sale of the whole building, you're still interested in the upper level, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Council? Questions? Concerns? Comments?
I was hoping someone would say something about it.
We haven't been invited yet.
Well,
We can invite you at this time.
You just know it.
My wife nominated me to go first. Mayor, council members, I appreciate the opportunity. A couple of things, and I know that you know this, but I've heard on the street, okay, that this is going to increase tax revenue to Pelican Rapids. It's not. Doesn't increase your revenue, doesn't increase the city's revenue 1 penny. it spreads the tax, if you sell this and put it on the tax rolls, it broadens your tax base. But you set your levy in December. It has nothing to do with the additional money. And I've heard that on the street, and actually, as you well know, I'm a county commissioner, and I hear this all the time, that man, you're gonna get more tax revenue. Nope, not a penny. So I just want, for the public that's listening in and things like that, for them to understand that in the state of Minnesota, budgets are set. Property tax that's on the tax roll simply determines where it's spread to. So not for your, I know you guys know this, and gals know this, but I just wanted to say that for the record, because I hear it all the time, okay? So, and this decision is yours. I'm not here for anything other than to share what I perceive to be something to consider, okay? And one of the things I would consider is that the value of the existing funeral home, according to our county assessors, over $196,000. So I find it interesting that that could be turned into something for housing, which we're all desperately trying to get, for those kinds of things. And I'm concerned that a private business gets the upstairs for what's been reported to be $1 and then can sell the other property they own for $196,000. That's a really good business decision for them. I'm not so sure that's a great business decision considering we need housing. And that's why I'm here. I want to express that that property in the right hands could be turned into a very nice multifamily dwelling, R2 zoned probably. So duplex is my understanding of your zoning and those kinds of things. So I want you to consider that as you move forward, because we really are desperate for housing, whether it be rental property, whether it be split it down the middle, whether it be all of those kinds of things. And so that's my comments regarding the property and the discussion I've heard in the past. The only other thing I would share with you is we're not a chartered city like you are, the county is. The county, in order to dispose of county-owned property, would have to have an auction. That's just statutory. You know, we would take sealed bids, and typically what we would do is we have this property for, actually we're gonna have one for a piece of land out on Lake Lida. Okay, the county owned it because of a highway project, it's a lot. We're gonna take sealed bids from everyone. Typically what we'll do is the top 5 bidders, if there are 5 bidders, put in a sealed bid, and then we have what's considered to be a sheriff's auction, but it's not a sheriff's auction, it's just since you were one of the top 5, you get a chance to raise your bid. And then the auditor actually holds that auction, and when it finally gets to somebody, everybody except for one, right, the highest bid is the highest bid, and then that's it. And that's how the county would dispose of county property. Like I said, your rules are different, your attorney's here, she can explain that to you or whatever, but I'm just saying that that's how we handle it. It seems to get the best value out of a piece of property for the residents of Otter Tail County. And I have one more comment, not regarding this, so I don't know if you want me to, if I can do that now or not. Don't waste all of that trail budget, because I'm going to be coming to you in about 2 weeks to ask for something. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council members, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
Wayne Runnigan, I just have a question and a concern, and I know Councilman Ballard raised it at a meeting a couple of meetings ago about the bonds that were sold to remodel the building, and I haven't heard any discussion about that, but that's a substantial amount of money that was borrowed, and the residents of the city still have to pay those bonds off. I don't know if it was a 20-year bond.
John, do you want to speak to that?
Or what, but it's just, that's my concern, is how that works into this, because the taxpayers are on the hook for, I think it was originally like $800 and some thousand, so, and they're still paying it off. So that was just my concern, not against the funeral home. doing something new and expanding, even though they're my neighbors, but
Yeah, I'll just comment that, yeah, the bond, I think, was a 25-year bond. We're 5 years into it, and the bond payment is about $50,000, I believe, a year.
The total is around $1 million.
It was 800 and, yeah, 890 with the financing costs and everything. And then what, Danielle?
There's about $1 million left to pay on it.
Okay.
When you think of the interest.
Yeah, with the interest, yeah. Dina?
Good evening, Dina Johnson. The only comment I'd like to make is, I know that there are actually at least one other party that's interested in this property. Now, whether they've pursued it or not, I don't know. You know, you hear things on the street, but I actually went to the source. I would really like you to consider doing a sealed bid auction type situation. I think it's best, and I think it would be best if you separate the top from the bottom of this building, you know, and sell just the top, not the whole building. I think you're financially losing if you sell the whole building and then all of a sudden have to pay a rent or lease back to the whoever buys it. The other option is, I think falls in your court. You could possibly even negotiate leasing the top for, say, close to what your bond payment is. So, you know, I mean, it's something that I think you could gain from this. So that's my 2 cents. So.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
No, we all have. You're up.
I just would like to, first, I guess I'm Jay Pesnick from Larson Funeral Home. And it first started out that we were looking, I was trying to put a presentation together to show the owners of the funeral home why we need a different facility. And I called Don to get some factual information, and he just presented a couple properties to me, the one being upstairs. So then right away, Don showed me the property, and I looked at it and I thought, my goodness, I think I can see this, visualizing a funeral home in here. And went back, and that was 18 months ago or so. And so then we put together a packet to present to Burton's. And, you know, as I look at that, that space had been vacant for probably 10 years or close to 10 years. And when you did have somebody in there, they were only partially using it, if I remember correctly. And I just feel like we're a business that can use the whole space. And I think would be good rent, you know, good owners. I think we would work good with the city on that. Definitely would pay taxes where nobody's paying taxes on that now. We're been in the community for 75 years, so we get that done tonight. So I don't think that we're going to go anywhere anytime soon. And you know, in a small town, I look at it, I know we're a privately owned funeral home. I realize that. But privately owned businesses make up a small town in my mind. You know, what would this town be without like Ace Hardware, without Larry's Supermarket? When I moved to Pelican Rapids, we had 3 grocery stores. And, you know, and same with gas stations, insurance agents. If you look at those, they make up our town. And I know it's privately owned, but we're here to serve the community. The present funeral home, it does this job, but it doesn't do it well. And I look at this property, and we could have a huge foyer area. We'd be able to have lunch, and more people are having non-Christian funerals. We would have a parking lot, we'd have a street where nobody parks. And it would just serve the community. It wasn't that long ago, I don't know if I should name any names, that we had to have a visitation at the church. I could not hold that visitation properly. And that happens probably a handful of times a year that we go to church. And we can't get anybody we can't get everybody in the funeral home in a proper manner. So I understand. I actually understand the other point of view too. But I do think that it would be nice for the community to have a nice funeral home and be a good space that's not being used now. And as far as us owning the whole building, honestly, I think you need to do what the community wants and what's best for the city, because that's what I would want. Because we're here for the best of the city, we want what's best for the city, but as far as us utilizing that space, I just think we would utilize the whole space properly, we'd be good owners, we'd work with the town as good as we could. And as far as owning the whole building, I just think that's something you guys have to decide, but I definitely want you to do what's best for the city, not what's best for the Burton Funeral Home, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, this is Chris. Can everyone hear me there?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jake, for those comments. You had a lot of good points. I just would like to add to what Jake was saying by mentioning from a finance standpoint. I think I mentioned this at one of the earlier meetings that because of the substantial investment we need to make, because it's just a space in shell condition up there, that the only reason we could make it work is if we were handed the space or gifted the space, however you'd like to put it, because we have to basically start from scratch up there. And in addition to all of that, just building it out so it's usable, as everyone is aware, I believe, we also need to sprinkle the building because it is not does not have a fire sprinkler system now. So, and that is an additional investment of about $100,000, which, if you recall, we agreed we'd split that cost because half of it would be for the first floor. So, and again, like Jay said, we're excited. The space works out great. The space planned it out. Gave Jade a lot of things that Larson Funeral Home does not have now that would, we think make the services he could offer far enhanced to what he has right now. And again, serving families, serving the community, that's what we're all about. And I think in this space up there, that second floor, it would work great for that. And it's a nice opportunity. And we just appreciate the ability really to talk about it. And like you said, like Jade said, we're there to do what's best for the city and the community. So we're hoping that this is part of that program. So thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience?
I guess I should say something. I'm sorry I didn't get here on time, but that's my nature. My thing is...
Paul, could you introduce yourself for the people watching us on TV?
Paul Avenson. We've been lived in the community our whole lives, and then actually down south town, we've been in the trucking business, and trying to figure out how to retire, and it doesn't seem to be as easy as we'd like to. But from a financial standpoint, I don't get the whole picture, but I know you guys have worked, very hard to try and put together something that's feasible, and they have the facility or can have the facility and the financial thing to make it all happen. We've spent a lot of money, or the city spent a lot of money on this facility. Are we getting that cleaned up? Is all, some of those questions, is all that stuff going to be taken care of by them when they take over ownership, if they do? One of the things that go on is some of those questions been answered by others. I haven't followed it as close as I should, but that's part of the reason I'm here, because I'm curious. It's if there's a lot of debt involved in it right now, are they taking on some of that, cleaning up what the money we've already spent here to get to this point? And that was one of my main concerns. You guys do a good job, and it's sometimes very thankless, but that's one of my main concerns. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Speaking to what Paul just mentioned about the remodeling that has taken place, I think we all received a sheet on the cost endured so far. Don, do you have that handy?
Yeah, you guys
Do you want to speak to that?
Well, what I was asked to do prior council was to try and figure out if there's any way of doing that, how much money basically from that 800 and some thousand project, how much of that could be attributed to the upstairs, how much to the downstairs. And so what I did, it was just a very rough idea in order to provide to the council, is I just took just the construction costs. I didn't do the financing costs because that would be a little bit difficult or you could try and do it on a percentage basis maybe, but I just wanted to try and take the construction costs and see if I could figure out what part of that was really upstairs, what part of it was downstairs. And so I took the schedule of costs that the contractor submits whenever they basically, it's kind of from their bid package or whatever, or their schedule of costs that shows the different components of the construction project and, how much is roof, how much is EFS, how much is lights, how much is, electrical, that type of thing. So I took that and I went down through it just to see if I could figure out in some rough sense how it would end up. And what I came up with was out of the $772,000, which was the construction cost, there was about $279,000 of it that you could say benefited the upstairs, and $493,000 of it roughly would benefit the downstairs. And again, without really, to break it down and get it more in depth than I did, then we're going to be looking at architects, we're going to be looking at all kinds of stuff to try and help me explain these numbers. That's why I thought taking that schedule of costs and just looking at it, and when you talk about the EFS, when you talk about the roof, stuff like that, it's that benefit to both because it's the building. Then I just basically split it out 50-50 type thing. But the rest of it, as you go down, masonry, demo, all that type of stuff, metal framing, ceilings, those things, I tried to basically make sure I accurately allocated them to one versus the other. Because there's a lot of things when you talk about ceilings, when you talk about paint, the mechanical was a 50-50 thing. Electrical, that was really all downstairs. None of that was done upstairs. And that's obviously why there has to be a lot of money stuck into the upstairs to make it usable, because there's nothing up there. So that's kind of what I did.
We haven't really answered Paul's question.
What do we pay a month?
$5.
I mean, we have $50,000 a year principal and interest, right? So we have wasn't a math teacher, okay, but if I divided it right, that's like $4,166 a month. And their proposal was for $4,022 a month if we sold the whole thing. So if we sold the whole thing, their proposed rent is negotiable, but their initial proposed rent would be $4,022. So we're looking at about $8,200 a month between rent and paying off our bond. And that would increase, the rent would, per their initial proposal, again, just their initial proposal, hasn't been finalized or accepted or anything, but per their initial proposal, that rent would increase 2.5% annually. So it wouldn't be long before we're over the 10,000 mark. If we sold the whole building and if everything was, if we accepted their initial proposal. That doesn't make sense to me, to spend that much. I mean, it'd be like paying a mortgage and then paying rent on your own house. which doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
We had a closed meeting. Are we going to, at what point do we discuss some of those decisions? When?
You could talk about it right now. Anything you want to make public, you can talk about.
Okay. From my, personally, I think it's a mistake to sell the whole building. I think initially we had talked about selling just the upstairs, and, you know, full disclosure, I've never, ever, I've always said, the last thing the city should be is in the real estate business. If there's a way that, if city owns a property and we can get a business to go, Jade actually talked to me out in the parking lot one day, and initially I was like, yeah, take the whole thing, let's get out of here, we'll figure out something else. As I've looked, as I look at the numbers, and I don't see that as practical or really acceptable anymore. So, I think the upstairs would be a good idea to sell. Again, looking at the debt service that we owe and the responsibility that we as representatives of the people of Pelican, I don't think giving it away is prudent either. However, I struggle with the sealed bid portion of it. As Jade said, that thing has been sitting up there for 10 years and nobody is showing any interest, and now all of a sudden we have the community, a portion of the community kind of up in arms that we're gonna get rid of it, and you're gonna, but, so I think, in my mind there, we have one buyer, and that right currently is Verton, if they accept. But I don't think we should give it away or hand it over.
Have we as a council come to a conclusion? Are we interested in selling, giving away? I don't want to use the word giving away, but selling the whole building or just the upstairs? Where are we with that? Because that cuts a lot of discussion out of this equation.
Well, I think from the meeting that we had, the closed meeting that we had, we didn't really make any decisions. But I think we came to at least an understanding that we were more interested in selling the top part of the building rather than the whole building. And it's unfortunate in the fact that in this whole process, there's been kind of things that have been discovered or rediscovered in the fact that we're not made part of the negotiations with the debt and all of these things that, so we end up, the council looks kind of foolish in the fact that we've talked about doing this. And to answer your question, Paul, we haven't settled anything yet. But we need to figure out how to honor the taxpayers in this and hopefully help this other business prosper. So
does everyone at the table here agree with Councilman Foster that we're just talking about the upstairs?
Well, I told you what I wanted to do. I'd like to sell the whole thing, but we don't have another building ready for us. So I'm okay with selling the upper level. And there's a lot of things to negotiate, meter expense, everything. So we just have to hammer that out. And to answer Paul, the they're not gonna take on that entire debt, that we have. I mean, it's just not gonna work.
I totally understand that. But you,
Paul, do you want to address the mic? They won't be able to hear you.
not really. You're normally doing this much better than me.
You're doing a really good job, Paul.
Is the funeral home, are they willing to entertain any other idea? Would they rent? I mean, I'm sure you guys have thought about all this stuff. I mean, is that all best interest for the city? That's all I'm getting at. I'm not very savvy with it, but I'm just, is there any other way that they would be interested in doing something upstairs if the city retained ownership?
My only thought when you talk about them renting the upstairs, really truly the bottom line is the upstairs needs, and I don't think Chris has ever told us what their cost estimates were, but it needs several hundreds of thousands of dollars up there before anybody would move into it, so, and rent it. So who pays for the cost of putting all of that in place to start renting it out?
Right, well.
That's the difficult
that's
thing with
part of it,
renting.
though. I mean, what options are there? I mean, are they willing to step up to the plate with it and rent to own? Or, you know, so the city can kind of see their way out of it a little bit, because that's all that's all I'm kind of getting at.
Chris, do you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. I will say this, you know, when we first looked at that space, we, you know, I walked it a couple of different times with Jade and our contractors. And like I had mentioned earlier, it's a significant investment, and I would look at it a couple of different ways. If there was interest in renting to us, let's say, not saying that we'd necessarily be interested, because I believe that, you know, owning it would be our preferred option, but generally in a landlord, you know, and a lessee scenario, there would be a lease term. See, part of what I would be concerned with is that we want to make this our permanent home there. And, you know, there's always the opportunity with the lease that the lease term comes up and, you know, what if it wasn't renewed? So we really don't want to look at that scenario because of that, I think, primarily. But secondly is that there would be another significant investment by one of the two parties in a lease situation as well, which typically, you know, if we were to sign a long-term lease, there'd be a significant landlord contribution to all the work in there. So, you know, to me, it's the simplest scenario, and, you know, primarily looking to acquire the second floor at a low cost like this is the only way we can make this work financially as a business. You know, Jade knows, we know how much business we do out of Pelican Rapids. It doesn't fluctuate a lot year to year, so we have you know, our income is more or less set there. And in order to make it work financially in the model we put together, with the amount of money we need to put into it, you know, the original terms we discussed was really the only way I think we could do it. And that has been discussed with the leadership team at Burton as well. And when I first put these numbers together, it took some significant review, and, you know, we did a lot of analysis as far as how we could make it work. And I think at the end of the day, even though the cost is high, we thought we could make it work by owning it. So.
Is the public hearing still open?
Yeah.
Dina Johnson again. I respectfully request that no decisions are made tonight other than maybe going forward with negotiations. As far as I understand, there's multiple options on the table, whether it's owning the whole building, owning one floor, you know, some sort of donation. There's been a lot of things that I've read in the newspaper and that I've heard, you know, read in council minutes. So I think you have an opportunity to sit down, negotiate, and see where the chips lie. Because I think it's a good idea if it all works out in the city's best interest and it's viable for Burton's. So I think no decisions have to be made tonight, but I think it's very important that negotiations continue. And it may end up that when you negotiate, you realize that you can't come to a spot. Then again, it may turn out that there's something that works out for everyone excellently. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Strand?
I just wanted to respond to Paul. Renting or releasing the upstairs, we still have that debt to deal with, which is a bugger.
Yeah.
And a lot of added expense that, we wouldn't be paying the lion's share of either, had it, if we chose not to rent it.
Jade or Chris, do you say the bottom falls out of this and we determine that Verton acquiring this, either upstairs, downstairs, or the whole thing, doesn't happen, are you still considering expanding in Pelican or not?
And this is Chris, I would say it has been discussed, but the odds of it happening without this deal are pretty low, I would say.
So then you would continue operating where you're at your present location?
Yes, I think so. I mean, that's what I'd say right now. I'd have to go back and discuss it some more, but it's been, as Jade knows, a new funeral home in Pelican's been discussed for years, but financially, as I mentioned, because of the volume of that location and, the business it could support, the new building it support, there haven't been a lot of options until now.
Jade?
Yeah, I'll just say this and you always have to do what's best for the city. I mean, I still will always say that. But as far as building a new funeral home in a small town, I don't think it's ever going to happen. If you see any funeral homes remodeling now, they're funeral homes that are probably doing 200 plus calls. So I hope my CEO isn't listening to this because he'll hear my opinion, but you don't see anybody investing in small town funeral homes anymore. They're lucky to survive. It's just like a lot of businesses. The margins are tight. It's not like it was 30 years ago. And I'm actually surprised I'm still here because like when I first looked at the property, I don't know much about construction, but I still threw out something in my head when Don showed me the property. And I know the bids are more than double than what I imagined. And I'm not saying they won't, but I'd be pretty shocked. And I don't know any small town building new funeral homes. They're lucky to have a funeral home, to be honest with you. And you'll see them, they're closing as far as that goes. And one problem is getting manpower. There's funeral homes in northern Minnesota that the guy quits, I don't know what they're gonna do. And in Lisbon, North Dakota, the funeral director walked away. So if you got 3 chapels, if you call that funeral home, unless something's changed, you'll get an answering service to call another funeral home. And I actually think this is a beginning, where if you live in northern North Dakota, northern Minnesota, I don't know what they're gonna do in 10, 20 years. So to me, this is a good opportunity, but I understand if it doesn't work for the city too.
Thank you, Jade.
Thank you.
Chris, getting back to the upstairs only concept, it was mentioned $1 early on, and that looks like that's off the table now. How much are you willing to pay for it?
Well, that's a good question. That hasn't been brought up in any of our discussions up till this point, primarily because of the investment we'd have to make. I would probably have to go back and discuss that if you wanted an answer.
Okay.
I would say this, if anything, it would be a pretty low number, I think. One thing I was thinking about that we haven't mentioned is yes, we're putting a significant amount of money in the building, which would become, you know, a permanent improvements up there. Let's say if we owned it, then yes, it would be to our benefit, but I think we all would agree occupied space, especially on the main street down the middle of town, is always better than unoccupied. And in addition to that, in order to make this work, we also need to build a garage and a link between the garage and the building. And we need to relocate a transformer to do that. I mean, and that part alone is, you know, something that we wouldn't normally do. In any other facility, if we found an existing building, let's say, that we could move Larson to, we would look for all those elements. And that wasn't part of the program with City Hall there. There's no garage, you know, attached or even detached that we could use, so we have to build one. And as we all know, construction costs are very high. That's, you know, an interesting thing to think about with this too, is the money we're spending. Construction costs today, if I had to guess, are probably 20 to 25% higher than they were 5 to 10 years ago. However, our number of calls and our revenues per call has not increased nearly that much. So again, I would you know, reiterate that because of the investment we're putting in the building and an outside structure and you know, our basically set amount of business we do in that community is the only way we can really make this work. I mentioned that, I think I mentioned that before, but you know, it's been a while since we first met and talked about it, so I would just remind you of that again and mention that, so thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Just, everyone wants the funeral home to stay, okay? Jade knows that. And so there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. However, there's no guarantee that the upstairs gets remodeled and all of a sudden the financial picture changes and they're gone in 5 years. So I mean, to say we'll be here forever isn't an accurate statement. The other thing that just from my perspective and the experience I've got, we never make decisions the same day as a public hearing, as a county board, because the 2 times we did, it bit us. Okay, because you didn't think of things, you didn't talk about things, you didn't do it. So I'm going to implore you. I appreciate the public hearing. I really appreciate being able to speak and those kinds of things. But I'm just going to implore you that when you close this public hearing, don't make decisions today, because there will be things you'll think about. And I've done this in my own personal life, and I've done this as a public official. I thought about things 3 days later and went, oh, didn't think of that. You know, and all of a sudden the decision got made. So that's my real comment here. I appreciate Burton family for all their investment and all the multiple funeral homes they own. I appreciate that Jade's here in town. He's been here for years and years and years and years and years. His family is raised here, all those things. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that I'm going to urge you to not make any decisions this evening, that you go back and you get to chew on it, so to speak, think about it, those kinds of things, because I think you'll come up with a good solution for the city, for the citizens, for everybody else, hopefully for Burtons and everybody like that. That's just my experience in dealing with these public hearings, that what I've learned. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, as I gather, when I posed that question to Chris about how much they're willing to pay, he said they would have to go back and talk about this, so I don't see a decision coming forth this evening without knowing that information at this point. Anyone else from the council chambers before we close the public hearing?
Mayor Frazier, Wayne Rennigan, I would just say that when this council decided to do the bond payments, I was part of the discussion of the community center upstairs, and that was an additional cost. But the council decided they wanted nothing to do with the community center at the time, but yet they wanted to totally retrofit the building, which was a good thing. So at the time that you did borrow that money, you weren't thinking about doing anything else upstairs. You just wanted to enhance the building as a whole. I just thought I would add that, you know, the upstairs wasn't a consideration, even though it was talked about. I don't remember how much more money it was, probably $300,000 or $400,000.
It was about, I believe it was 600,000.
Okay, it was an additional amount of money, so, so this council did, you know, borrow that money without planning on anything upstairs at the time. So it was just the whole concept of fix the building up, you know, do what we need to do, and we'll figure out the upstairs later. So that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council chamber before we close the public hearing? Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing or hearing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. I appreciate Commissioner Johnson's comments about, not making a decision this evening, and then I guess I said that Chris needs to get some information yet to us about what they'd be willing to pay for the upstairs. Council have any comments to that?
I'd like to see us sit down with Burton's and just discuss about how we could go about meeting everybody's goals on this.
In a work session type setting, or?
Yeah, work session or,
That work for you, Chris?
Yeah, if you like, could we set that up through Zoom and do a video call in the near future?
I didn't hear that.
He said yes, he'd be interested in that, and could we set it up through Zoom
Okay,
in a
yeah.
video conference in the near future?
I see no problem with that.
Okay.
So we will leave that at this evening. You can be in contact with Administrator Solga regarding a date that would work.
Yes, that would be fine, thank you.
Okay.
So work sessions have to be posted as well though, right?
Correct, because you'll all, quorum of the council, hopefully all five of you will be there.
So, I mean, if that was to happen, they have to be posted for 2 weeks?
No, 3 days.
3 days? Close.
3 is 5. 3 is 5.
Yes, right.
The day you post doesn't count, and the day of the meeting doesn't count, so it's actually 5. It's 3 days, not including the day you post and the day you have the meeting. That's what our attorney tells us.
So now I just have a headache.
So a week, it can't be within the next week,
Right.
for certain.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the last meeting is the 27th of September. If we wanted it before that or not. Because
I would like.
Chris, didn't you have like an October, didn't you throw October timeline kind of?
Yes.
Potential?
I had mentioned that we're in the process of getting our final bids because we wanted to finalize our budget. Our original numbers were always based on preliminaries. So we were working to get our final numbers and hoping to work out the deal sometime by early October, I'd say, would be great. Because if we didn't want to start this year, we have outdoor work, concrete work, site work to do, and we want to, of course, do that before the ground freezes. So ideally, that's what we like. The timeline we'd like to follow is to, if we're going to work this out, to work on, getting it done by early October at the latest.
Mayor,
Yes.
does this have to be a public meeting or negotiating with them?
If you're using it as doing a work session type thing, it's gotta be a public meeting. The public can come and listen, but you don't have to let the public participate in the discussion.
But can we have a private meeting, does the public have to be listening when we're negotiating
Is this a
prices?
negotiation meeting?
Yeah, that's a lawyer question. Because typically, it's,
She's here this evening.
closed meetings are for the purpose of the council discussing their strategy or their response to a terms of an agreement, that type of thing, you know, kind of putting it, talking privately amongst themselves to respond to Verton, for instance. But to have Verton in a meeting with the council, talking about what the council's gonna do, I don't know that that's a closed meeting. I think it's gonna have to be an open meeting. But like I said, just because it's an open meeting doesn't mean the public can participate. They can come.
They just have to be
can't
allowed to
speak.
be present and listen.
They can be present and listen. It's up to
Lindsay,
the council.
do you agree? Reach your, didn't see that one coming.
I don't know all the statutes off the top of my head. Closed meetings, as I recall, if you're gonna close the meeting, it's to develop those counteroffers and discuss that amongst yourselves. And that there's no public participation, there's no inviting private parties, anything like that. Are you referring to a special meeting or a work session?
A work session is what they referred to.
Okay.
All our other work sessions have been open to the public.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
typically are, yeah. There's only certain things you can close a meeting for, and that's not one of them.
Yeah, and I think that's my initial reaction.
I personally,
You agree with that, Danielle, who's
Yes, I-
the clerk
I
and
agree.
responsible for it?
Yeah.
right, I personally don't see any harm in whoever wants to listen.
Right.
I mean, I don't think we have to have a big open debate with everybody.
Right.
We're just trying to come to some semblance and see if an agreement can even be reached.
Correct.
Right. Well, and back to Administrator Solis' comment, I mean, there's only so many things you can close a meeting for. And if you're having to post notice of something, I mean, that's a pretty good indicator that it's open to the public.
Right.
But as far as whether or not participation is allowed, citizen comments, that's something I'd have to get back to you on. But I would think not. I would think, you know, the listening in, yes, you have to keep it open, but whether or not you can allow or disallow public comment, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Well, that's just like a council meeting. The mayor doesn't have to basically let anybody speak at a city council meeting either. You
That
just
would-
do.
That wouldn't go over too well.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't, but. That's true. But that's true. You don't have to allow anybody to speak. It's good that you do. And then a
But
work
all,
session.
all we're looking forward right now is just a path forward, so
Yeah.
Right.
I think we all sit down and talk together in the council
Yeah.
with Vertons and see if we can find a path forward.
I would like to see that meeting happen next week.
That would be the earliest that it could happen.
Correct.
Yeah, it's gonna have to happen soon because there's some of us, and not that I need to be necessarily a part of it, but I know the mayor's gonna be gone for a week and a half. I'm gonna be gone for a week and a half, so
I
in the
think
beginning of October.
If I'm counting the days right, isn't the 21st the first day it could possibly happen? If it is a true 3 is 5 scenario.
22nd.
Well, I've never heard the 3 is 5. News to me. I've been told that the day you post it doesn't count, so we could have it as early as Monday.
Well, the 3 is 5 rule just makes sense to me on the side of caution rule, because when you read statutes and you see that the day of posting does not count, you need 3 days notice. I mean, 3 full days notice, you wouldn't count the meeting date either, so that.
You do count, the meeting date counts as one of the days.
Yeah, it does, yeah, but
And you
we'll go
count,
with what you say.
it doesn't have to be just work days, you count every day of the week?
Can't be a weekend, I don't think.
No, but I mean, you count those days
I
in the
wasn't-
weekend?
I don't think so.
I didn't count them.
You don't,
Okay.
no.
No,
No,
that's why I said Monday.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, so I mean, if you announce it here at the public meeting, Commissioner Johnson just pointed that out, You can continue the meeting.
Instead of adjourning this meeting, you could continue this meeting till a time certain. This meeting was announced, and Lindsay's the attorney, but we deal with this stuff a lot, so I apologize for stepping in, Mr. Mayor. But if you simply recess this meeting and then pick it back up again at another date and time, everyone who was in this meeting knows you recessed. They know you're gonna pick it up again on Tuesday at 7 a.m. or whatever time you're gonna do. And the county board does that all the time, and our attorney sits in on every meeting we do, and that's how we handle it when we need to address something in a timely manner. We simply recess and then reconvene at a later date and a later time. I'm just throwing it out there for a suggestion that I believe you could do that.
With a posting though.
Nope. The posting is right here and right now. You simply are announcing that
It wouldn't be a work session then, though, it'd be a continuation of this meeting.
Continuation of this meeting.
Yeah, right.
That's Kurt, sorry.
No.
Yeah, so it's the second option.
Yeah, it's just a second option, I just wanted to throw it out. The only reason is because we end up doing that every once in a while.
Okay.
So,
Well,
the work session.
You've already actually
Is required,
Right.
continuing the council meeting.
adjourned the public hearing, haven't you?
We haven't adjourned the public hearing yet.
Yeah.
We
You
did.
did?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
But it would be, what they're talking about is the entire meeting.
We continue this meeting,
Yeah.
Oh.
That
and
way-
we could
that way-
continue it with one
Agenda.
Agenda item.
agenda item
yeah.
at a, you know.
Yeah.
So the thought, I assume, is to give Chris more time to get more information. Give council time to think about public comment.
So the only thing we'd have to agree upon tonight is the date.
Date and time.
Which will have to include Burton
Yes.
being available.
Yeah. You still there, Chris?
Otto left too.
Yes. As far as committing to a date and a time, I could commit to my date and time, but there's a couple other folks I'd like on the call. And would this be called during business hours or after hours, or what's the thought there?
I think we're open to just about anything at this point.
I think, well, for us, business hours would probably work best because we would end up, doing the call from our office. And I know that a couple of the folks that I would like to invite might have after-work activities, with kids, sports, that sort of thing. So I'm not sure of, what any of those days are. So during a business day would work best for us. And I can work with Mr. Soga on that if he has your schedules and we can coordinate ours.
But we have to come up with something.
As soon as I can, once I know our availability.
We can't continue the meeting in that case.
Yeah.
So we would have,
We'll just post it.
What?
but then it would be a work session.
Yes.
You can't,
okay, yeah,
yeah.
we'll
Then
work
it
on
requires a
session.
3 days posting,
Yeah,
which may be 5, we haven't determined.
so that we don't have to recess. Okay.
I'm open, whatever time. Kelvin?
I don't care. Just not Monday or Tuesday, but I do care.
Oh.
I think
What's
we'll
your druthers?
I think we'll have to post it, given their
Yeah,
situation.
I do too, yeah.
So we'll just have it for the first available day after posting. If today doesn't count, start counting tomorrow.
How about Wednesday the 21st?
Perfect.
That's what I said
Yeah.
initially.
Okay. What time?
2.
2?
2 PM. Wednesday, 21st?
So tentatively that date, Wednesday the 21st at 2 PM? Chris?
Yeah, I'll put that on the calendar. I'm actually looking at other calendars now, and that might work. I've got a tentative item on one of these calendars. I'm not sure what it is, but let's put that down if there's issues. If we need to change it to a different time during that day, would you need to change, does that complicate things as far as getting the announcement out, or could it be reset?
Yeah, let me know as soon as possible if it needs to change time.
Okay. I'll do that. I'll put it on my calendar now and get the, I'll find out tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, thank you.
Should we pick an alternate date?
Because if she does in fact find out tomorrow, and you're posting tomorrow, and it doesn't work,
Oh, it should be a day later?
yeah, I don't know.
Can you do that or not? Can you have alternate dates?
I would, no.
Okay.
How about if you post
I would-
after he gives you your decision, if this is okay with everybody on the council?
I'll post after he's confirmed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But let us know, so we don't make plans to be here.
Send us an email.
I will do that.
Okay.
That wasn't easy.
Still didn't decide anything.
Let's never ask that question again.
Right?
Okay, hearing no more conversation at this point, we will move on. Item 9 is also a public hearing on a tax abatement. So recess the city council meeting to go to the tax abatement hearing. Don?
Okay. So the purpose of this public hearing is similar to what we've done in the past as it relates to housing tax abatements. We have somebody that has submitted an application and been approved at the county level for property tax abatement on putting up a new house in Pelican Rapids. And basically it's explained for the most part by resolution 2022-17. In that resolution that was in the packet, there's just one thing that I need to note. When we did our first abatement, it was for a duplex. And I missed the fact that in the first Article 1 recitals, 1A, it references construction of a housing duplex. Upon approval of council, approving this resolution, I just want you guys to know that that has to be changed to construction of a single-family home. It won't be duplex. So that revision will have to be approved. I'm going to show you a picture, I believe, of where this property is. Sorry for those that can't see the screen, but. So down on 6th Avenue, right here, this parcel right here, this is Mr. Sheriff's place. 6th Street, what did I say, 6th Avenue? Yeah, 6th Street Southeast. There's this empty parcel right here. And there's been work done at this point to kind of get this road in a state that he's able to access the property. Water and sewer will be extended down to the property, but he's going to build the home on this lot right here. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can get a little bit better perspective of where it is. But I believe this down here is Councilman Strand's property, I believe. Nope, take that back. Anyway, it's this parcel. Does everybody kind of have an idea where it is? Yep.
No, where?
So you know where,
Where?
Amber lives?
Yeah,
It'd be, and then there's a yellow house to the north.
yeah,
It'd be directly behind that to the east.
behind the yellow house?
Yes.
Right. Back there, there's a couple lots back here, and in the past, they really haven't been accessible from 6th Street. And this first one is really pretty much is easy to do as long as we extend 6 down, and we've done that. We're in the process of doing that, or I think we've done it, actually. And then water and sewer will be extended down to be able to furnish it to this lot. So the person that applied for it was Elmine Nezrevic is the one that put the application in. And so that's the purpose of the public hearing tonight, for the council to consider and approve the tax abatement.
And the county has already passed theirs?
Yes, the county already did that.
I move that we adopt resolution.
We got-
I have to change some verbiage, right, you said?
We gotta hear from the public.
Yeah, that's a public, yeah.
So, any questions or whatever else you can.
Anyone here in the audience want to speak to that? 2 of you left. Two of you left.
Is this what when you described that needing to be changed to a single-family home rather than a duplex? That's the intention there, was a single-family home?
Correct. It was my error in putting the resolution together, because I just used the other one as a template, kind of. I forgot to change that.
Anyone in the audience want to speak to this? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing and reconvene our city council meeting. Councilman Ballard.
I move that we adopt Resolution 2022-17 with the correction.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll recess our city council meeting. We'll go into a public hearing regarding a street vacation. Don, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. Let me just get to one more place so you guys can see the resolution. So Resolution 2022-16 is a resolution vacating Robson Street or 2nd Street Northeast at Block 10 of the original plat of City of Pelican Rapids. So what this one involves, again, I'm going to show you, I'm going to start with the city's map, and for some reason, it cannot be increased, the size of it as much as I can go. But this parcel right here, beside the river, you'll notice on this map that 2nd Street comes all the way down to where it abuts the west side of this parcel. And then there's an alley that comes through. This parcel and the person requesting the street vacation is actually Carrie and Elaine Johnson. So they want to sell their house, or they're selling their house, and but they can't get clear title on it without this vacation, and here's why. This alley had been vacated once before, earlier, but this street never did. And so when they were looking at putting the title together and getting clear title on it, they noticed that there's a street right here that is referenced in their title, but, and the alley also. The alley obviously has been vacated without the street. If you look at the map now, it's an updated map, and actually the 2019 zoning map, same thing. Here's the parcel. So it was just the fact, and here's 2nd Street, the same 2nd Street coming down, but it never extends all the way down because there's river here. So I don't know what happened there, but the early maps, early plats showed that street coming down when it really doesn't. When you walk off of Johnson's property, you fall into the water. So that's the reason the vacation has to happen, so they can get clear title. There's Mr. Johnson right there.
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Anyway, so what the resolution does is basically vacates this portion of the street that doesn't exist except on our maps right there. And so to get clear title, they need to vacate that street.
Anyone in the audience want to speak to this? Anyone in the audience?
All I would say is when I was on council, we had a bunch of streets that were platted through sloughs out on the east side of town, and then we vacated. So whether the water was there or not, or they just platted it that way at the time, I know out by the Strands, Councilmember Strands, there were streets running through the sloughs out there, and I know we vacated those, so. Just to kind of clean things up, I guess.
Thank you.
And I think for the most part, that actions that they did took care of a lot of them, but there's a few stragglers here and there.
Don, will you go back to the photo or the? So we're talking about that one.
Right here,
Yeah, okay.
This, on that other map, the water's over here, and this actually comes down to where it's a street, and then there's an alley running through here also.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak to this matter?
But there's no land where the alley is plotted? Okay.
I got it now.
It's underwater.
Plenty of land.
Anyone else in the
Maybe it
audience
won't
want to
be,
speak
though.
to this matter? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and reconvene our city council meeting.
So again, it's just a matter of passing resolution 22-16.
I'll move we adopt resolution 2022-16 vacating Robeson Street.
I'll second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the same, motion carried. At this time, we'll jump down to item number 13, is the 2023 general budget discussion. And that was in our packet.
So,
Go ahead.
say go ahead to me?
Nope.
No,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, handed out to you guys today was a kind of a revised one. And what's on the screen I'll go through to show you the changes that kind of I had kind of thought through, and so it's a scenario. And I want to go through them. They're reflected on the ones in front of you. You can make notes, and then you can discuss and change however you want to. But if you recall, the last budget that we talked about had a 18, almost, it was over
Almost
18,
19%.
almost 19% increase. This one shows a 9.87% increase. And I'll explain what I did. So basically, on the first page you go down, I added a liquor store transfer increase of $20,000. So on this budget that I'm going to show you and what you've got printed out, it's really blue, is what I'm going to refer to. On page 2 of it, I basically took out the economic development director. The next change that I made is on page 5. On page 5 for capital improvement for the streets, I basically put in all of the things that you see on the list over there. I added in the money for the salt shed of $85,000. I added in the truck lease, this is kind of a worst case scenario in a sense, but I added in the Bobcat lease and the truck lease based on the quotes that I got from our lease company, and I also added in the 2003 dump box. So that's everything that basically, for the most part, except for some stuff down at the bottom, a couple, 3 things that Brian was originally on his list, but so everything is in there, all right? And then the next thing that I changed was down on page 8. And on page 8, under economic development, because we had discussion about looking at contracting economic development through CEDA, I took the normal $30,000 that we have every year for economic development should something come up that the city needs some money to do something with. I took that $30,000 and I made it $40,000. And my thought was that this $40,000, the whole $40,000, could be used to contract and have CEDA work on economic development work, whether it's a housing project, whether it's whatever. Now, we haven't talked to them yet, but that's something that if the council wants to go, if you like what you see here anyway, we can start having them discussions. The other thing I did was I added the $250 to West Central Initiative's request, so that's how the 8250 is blue, because I put $250 in there. And then the yellow, which was the library stuff, it wasn't changed. It was still yellow because it's still a discussion point. But Mr. Ruddigan's correct. The city and the discussion we had last time was to consider putting the $4,250 of inflationary cost request in just to see what it does with the budget. And there was no adjustment to the regular levy transfer, reflecting a COLA increase in the wages and, for the employees down there, because we don't know what that necessarily means for their budget, because as we had talked about, for the past 4 or 5 years, even though they haven't been fully staffed, their wages and benefits budgets have come in far below what their budget says. And so what the council discussed was, or what the discussion was last time, I don't think anybody disagrees that their city employees and the city should cover their wages and benefits. But what are those wages and benefits going to be in 2023? Nobody knows. We just know that they haven't been where they have been budgeted to be for the last few years. And so the thought was, the discussion and the thought was, let's see where 2023 lands, and if they fall short on wages and benefits outside of overtime and comp time, that the city would make an additional transfer to make them whole when it comes to wages and benefits. That's why the number, the 188, hadn't changed, because it wasn't that they weren't going to do nothing. It's just that it was kind of a wait and see what happens, with the idea that they would take a look at where the wages and benefits falls at the end of the year. So with those changes that I made, basically it brings it down to a 9.87 percent rate increase.
Don, do you want to discuss a little more the CETA economic development contract and how it's worked with other cities?
Well, yeah, I talked to Frazee. I haven't contacted CETA, but the individual that Frazee works with is out of Moorhead. His name is Don Morsung, and he's been with, well, if you saw that information I sent you guys, it kind of gave his bio, but what Frazee does is they contract with CETA, work with Don to do economic development activities. Right now, he's working with the city of Frazee on a housing project. He also, working with the Frazee EDA, they wanted to have a business listing that was available for the chamber, for the website, whatever the case may be. And so they worked with Don, or Don worked with them to basically go out, and he went to every single business in the city of Frazee and asked them if they'd be interested in being in this listing, in this brochure thing that they were putting together. And there was, because of the printing costs and everything else, in their particular case, I think they told me that they charged every business that was interested in doing it $25, and that was the only cost. And then they would develop this thing, this listing, which would identify the business, their locations, their websites, all that type of stuff, and then it would be available for whoever wants it. So that's the way they'd used them for that in the past. Right now they're using him for housing project. CETA also has other kind of, I'll call them divisions, departments, or whatever. The one that Frazee uses does not write grants, but they do have grant writers. So if they're working on a housing project, for instance, their individual would do that part of the paperwork, working with the TIF people or the city's, financial planner or financial consultant, whatever, to try and put that part of the project together. But he would reach over to CETA's grant writing individuals, and then they would look at giving a proposal to Frazee to write a grant for whatever it is they want to write a grant for, whether it's housing money or whatever the case may be. Frazee told me that under the agreement they have with them, CETA spends 2 days a month in Frazee working at City Hall. They have a space for him there. And then, but that doesn't mean that's the only 2 days he's working on their behalf. He's also doing stuff remotely or at his office in Moorhead, out of his home if that's where he's working from. And they spend, on average, they've used them for several years now, and on average, they spend $20,000 a year. So and they choose to do that. You could spend more, you can spend less. It just depends on how much. So I figured a good start would be, let's throw 40,000 in economic development, make sure that's kind of earmarked for CETA to use, and then put together some type of a program using them as economic development and see how it works. If it works well, we can continue, the city can continue to do economic development that way. You may have a reason to or a need to increase that budget in the future, maybe not. But I think you're wide open to use them as often and for different types of economic development activities. It's just a matter of having them come in, have a discussion with the city and figure out what can they help us with. I think the more they know, one of the things I asked Frazee was, do you find that you as a city have to keep reaching out and throwing stuff at them? Or do they basically, come to the city with suggestions? And she said both. It depends on what the city's working on or what the city's planning or goals are. But also, the more CETA learns about what the city's trying to do through the comprehensive plan, through everything else, they can come and say too, hey, I see you guys are trying to do this. Maybe it's putting together a grant to put in infrastructure in the Northwest land, whatever. I can help you do that, And obviously, there might be a proposal where, like in Frazee, where he's here a couple days a week working on stuff, or here just making contacts or whatever the case may be. And for that couple days a week or 3 times a week or whatever, it's this much. That's their proposal. That's how much you're paying them to do that. And then work on stuff. And then if there's little other things that pop up, that might be additional. But I think this is a good option. If you guys read the material that I sent you, I think it's a good way to segue into an economic development director or a city administrator, and also basically try that out and see if that's a good option, as opposed to committing to a position that's going to commit you guys long-term to over $100,000 a year. You might be able to just as much and get what you want done without spending that kind of money and commitment. Because once you hire somebody, you don't want to have them here 5 years and lay them off. It's just a thought. I thought it was a good option after talking to Frazee. It takes a big chunk out of the budget, and still you can add whatever you want in there and try and roll with some economic development.
Councilman, any comments on that concept?
I like it. I like it.
I don't have an issue with that sounds like a compromise, but I also noticed that in lieu of the 100 and whatever thousand for an economic development, we've padded, that skid steer was in a consideration, well, that's now added into the budget. The F-250 lease, which was added for consideration, is now in the budget. Just because we have the money doesn't mean we have to spend it. And I still struggle with the same concept of if we have equipment that works, we have taxpayers that work every day, and they don't get to drive around a brand-new F-250, and our city workers do.
I get that. I threw them in there for the simple sake of you guys being able to see what effect it would have, like I said, worst case scenario, on the changes I made. So you could see what effect it would have. If you guys want to pull them out and have, do whatever you want to do with the equipment, I can pull the numbers out of here and you can see the difference. That's fine. I just threw them in there so you guys, instead of you saying, what would it mean if we did that? The salt shed, $85,000, putting that in there. You don't have to keep that in there. We know this year we're going to be basically doing something because it's so far into the fall that we're going to have to work with the county on salt and sand now. And we've got that worked out. But at some point, you're going to have to do something different, because I think they gave us a year.
You said they'd be willing to do it for a year.
Right, so you either got to basically.
I'm sorry, at the new facility, they would do it for a year, or?
Yep.
We don't have any other option.
Right.
So.
We don't have a facility.
But is there a possibility of working with the county and having our salt, sand storage
They've
there?
been willing to do it for a year.
For this year.
Not long-term.
Not long-term.
Not long-term. Chuck Rowley and Christie Field met and they said, They do it for a year.
Raise their water bill.
So we're looking at a couple options, and obviously, having to have our own salt storage is one of them. But we're also looking at a couple other things, but you got to budget for it sometime. And so, do you do half of it this year? Well, you're going to have something by the winter 2023-24, because the county's not going to let us do anything else. So that's why I threw that in there. The number 10, go back up to that list. The number 10 dump box, could we wait another year on that? Could we wait 1 or 2 more years on the Bobcat and the F-250? You can wait as long as you want, but as sooner or later.
Is that a repair?
Let me just say something to what you said. Because, yeah, the taxpayers maybe don't drive the new equipment, but they also don't work with the new equipment every day. Then when it breaks down, then they expect that level of service that we're no longer ready, we can't give them because we're broke down. What happens when your truck's broke down? You have to bring it back and fix it, and throws everything off. People are wondering why they don't come to get their garbage. It happens. So when we're moving snow and we break down, all of a sudden we're 2 hours behind our schedule because this truck should have been replaced. Now we're blowing U-joints and everything else out of it. We have to.
I'll tell you, we have never bought a brand-new garbage truck in my 53 years of.
Well, I don't know that that's a good thing.
Well, but
honestly,
there's a price,
I know there's a price to it.
It's a cost.
Taxpayers expect a certain level of service nowadays that running our old equipment breaking down isn't providing.
Let me add a comment in there. I remember 40 years ago when I worked for the city, when I started, and our equipment was, third hand. It wasn't second hand. It was third handed to us, and we bought it. And we had a lot of repairs. And usually when the equipment breaks down is when you need it the most. I remember, plow would break down, we'd have to drive it to the shop, we didn't get the street plowed, and then people are calling City Hall wondering, how come, you aren't plowing our street? Well, we couldn't because we were repairing trucks. It's very important.
It happens with our skid steer. Blow a hydraulic hose, now we're out. Now we're, downtown isn't getting done fast enough, and alleys aren't getting done fast enough, but when the truck's down or stuck or whatever it is. But, there's compromises that I'm willing to make in this budget. But to just say that we should just buy old equipment isn't right.
I never said we should buy old equipment. I'm saying if we have equipment that is functional and usable, that we use that functional equipment.
Here's my thing. I hate to do it, but I need a salt shed next year. I need something to store my sand salt in. If it makes you guys happier to drop a couple things out, but remember, they're coming back next year. The same truck and skid steer are coming back next year. And that's just, it's a cycle. We have a replacement schedule that has been agreed upon for years, and we're really behind it.
We're behind on our replacement schedule?
Very much. I look at my budget wish list for the last few years, and I've got the same things on them. It's the same things on every page. Then we find, we compromise, we try to find things, use liquor store funds, whatever. I understand we need to keep the tax low, but these things aren't going away because to provide the level of service that the community wants, specifically in the winter, we need to upgrade eventually.
Let me share something that I mentioned to Brian, because obviously there's been comments about the fact that we're driving 2 F-250s as opposed to, we keep wanting an F-250 to plow snow, but yet we've got 2 of them. One of the things that I mentioned to Brian was, the thought, do we really need 2 F-250s? And partly the reason we have 2 is because we always take the older one and we push that into the plowing of the snow before we get rid of it, so it's got a few years on it, and so we kind of been, and then the new one we get doesn't start plowing snow for 3 or 4 years or whatever the case until the next one goes away. And one of the things I mentioned was, is that the right way to be doing it? Should we really just be, if we really truly need F-250s to push snow because we're driving, we're pushing, using them for that purpose, does the other one, do we have to have two of them? Can we just think about, obviously we need, the number of trucks we need, I think we need. But can the one F-250 be swapped out for an F-150? And the only thing that we're gonna be plowing snow with is an F-250. And when that F-250 needs to be replaced, we're gonna replace it with an F-250. We're not gonna start cycling stuff through. So at the end of the day, we'd really have one F-250, that's the plowing of the snow, the pulling of the big trailers of equipment, that type of thing, and everything else we would have would be F-150s. I know that, obviously, there probably isn't a whole lot of difference in price between the two, but it does save something.
Until we break down with an F-250 plowing snow, and we need another one. That's where we have to, I mean, you ask anybody that plows snows, you do not do it with an F-150 the way we do it.
Commercially, it's not,
There's
it's
no
not even
possible
viable.
way.
It's not.
And I lose one F-250, we're screwed. We don't have an F-150 with a plow on it because the plow's not gonna fit on that truck.
Well, it's not gonna hold up to the
And it's not
abuse.
gonna hold up to that truck. I mean, nothing, that truck will be broke down more than if even plowing.
And I think
for
that's
4 hours.
kind of how we got to
Right.
two
And that's-
F-250s.
Exactly, that's how we did, yeah. And I didn't let you finish, I'm sorry, but.
No, I was done. So back to the numbers. I put them in there just for the sake of seeing you what it meant if we did do it. We don't, if you want to wait a year or whatever on the truck, the Bobcat, whatever, any of this stuff, except the salt shed's probably not an option. But
What was the number again for the economic development director? What was that?
it was 105,000, and I've always said, I don't know if we can get one for that.
But we took the 105,000 out and we replaced it with the 118,000 of expenditures. Not including the 85,000 of the shed.
I think what he's saying is that was just for an example.
Right.
Right?
Just an example. And I took more for the liquor store to do it.
We actually took 60 out because we got 40,000 in economic development.
Money
Correct?
in the budget.
You've got 40,000, well, I added 10,000 because you already had 30,000 in economic development. So I added 10 to that. You could basically take some of the equipment out and throw more in economic development. I just didn't know if Frazee uses them to the extent they do, and they average 20 grand a year. I didn't know if the city'd use them for CETA for 40 grand, 20 grand, 60 grand. It was just a starting point.
So you haven't contacted CETA yet, correct?
No.
So what if they say not available?
I don't foresee that being the case because CETA is very heavily in the southern Minnesota. And they want to get more developed in west central Minnesota. And that's why I think they'd be very, very willing to, obviously, without contacting them, I probably shouldn't say it, but I think they'd be very eager to work with Pelican Rapids on economic development, especially since they've got somebody in Moorhead. And it's, to my knowledge, the only place that he's doing anything is Moorhead and Frazee.
Would it be possible for you to contact them to see, just start a little conversation with them so we could find out, maybe if they did say, sorry, we're already in Frazee, we're not interested in Pelican, well, then we have to discuss an economic development position.
The other thing with having this stuff in, Kevin, for the sake of the discussion is, at this high, is because you guys can set a budget, and you can always go down, you can't go up.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
no, you first.
No, I did.
Mayor, can I ask Brian a couple of questions? What's a blade attachment for a skid steer?
It's like a road grader attachment for the skid steer. Smaller gravel roads with.
But I used to watch you do that with blade on the back of the
We have
tractor?
a box blade, but it doesn't get it level. It, so this would shape the alley a little more, so we can have decent alleys.
And then, so what happens to dump boxes? I just don't know.
It's rusted. There's this old steel dump box that's rusting out, so we put a stainless box on this one.
Okay. Well, Brian gets real tired of me talking about being a snowplow expert, and Kurt too, but, so I won't even say it. You know, John Deere and a couple Jeeps, they really go to town. So,
So is there any other monies we can transfer to knock this number down
Well,
more?
Yeah, actually, in front of you, thank you, Mr. Runnigan, but Wayne had set a letter in front of each of you guys, and I think the concept, and he could probably explain it better than me, but from reading a copy of the letter, he's just asking the council to consider the reserves that we have, looking at and pointing out in the investment schedule and the cash recap sheet, you know, how much money is in general fund savings or whatever the case may be. You know, we know that there's been a lot of money that you'll see on the investment sheet that's earmarked towards something. We know that things that aren't on there that might crop up have to do with once they take the dam out or they put that bridge in place, which we got a grant for, half of that. But, you know, there might be things that pop up that you want to use, and everything that we try and do costs money. We know Pelican Pete has to be fixed, and we know that's going to be expensive, and the council has to figure out, or we have to figure out how he's going to be fixed. And I expect that that's going to be tens of thousands of dollars, but I think the big thing that makes everybody a little bit nervous is the 2024 project. We do have cost estimates for the city's share of that, but those are just estimates. And with the cost of everything skyrocketing, I'm expecting that them estimates are not going to be that accurate for MnDOT or the city. So, you know, I think you're going to have plenty of opportunity to spend reserves, but having said that, Wayne made a good point, and I think you definitely, I think, would be safe in taking some of them reserves and transferring them in on the revenue side. You know, maybe take 50,000 of that for starters, just because I really want to be cautious about jumping into a huge amount of money coming out of the reserves with 2024 still in front of us, not behind us. But having said that, I think to buy that in light of inflation and everybody's struggles and stuff out there, to add $50,000 to the 120 that we're transferring in from the liquor store, that would make a huge difference on the budget also. It's just, where do you want to end up? You got 8.7 now. If you added $50,000 to this from the reserves, you're down to 4%. How low do you want to go? If you take equipment away out of Brian's budget for everything you knock out, that number even goes lower. So. So I just wanted to go through and explain the blue numbers on the sheet. You guys, you know, discuss. I'll change any number you want.
So you would be comfortable with transferring 50,000 out of the reserves to the budget?
I would, and here's kind of one reason I think that. But we thought last year that the pool was going to be a go, and it would have been had the legislature done something. But not that it won't be needed in the future, but the one thing that we know is that or expected at the time is that we were gonna have a bond payment on that pool of about $50,000.
Right.
And we collected it in the special levy. So we collected that money, and the pool thing didn't happen. It's gonna happen at some point, but you'll have an opportunity to collect that bond payment when that time comes. So you could basically take the $50,000 that you levied already and just throw it back into the general budget, giving it back to the people in a sense, bringing the budget down. That's one, you could look at it that way. I could probably give you other examples, but that's one way you could look at it.
I can tell you that number is a lot more friendly on that level of pain scale that you use at the doctor's office.
Yeah.
It's a lot less unfriendly face.
4 looks pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I'll just point out, and I think this was on here last time, when you're looking at the park stuff, this is big enough for you guys to see, but when you're looking at the parks, we talked about finishing E.L. Peterson Park, the play-in place, that's in here, that's $60,000. But we weren't gonna have that in the budget. It's noted here, but we were actually gonna use the liquor store funds of $107,000. There's a savings account that has 107 in there. We were gonna take 60 out of that to finish off the playground because of the need there with, making it safer for the kids and whatever. And then Brian talked earlier about the trail funds, that $6,000 in the parks, to clear that trailhead down there, and we were gonna use, he already did that, and you guys approved that, so it's not, the 6,000 isn't in the budget, it just was a request to be made, and we were taking care of that through the investment funds, which you guys already approved tonight, so I'll just take that off the list, but.
Councilman Strand.
I don't know about reserves. I mean, are we within recommended guide, I don't know.
That's a good question. Typically, they say that the city should have 6 months of operating costs in reserves. I can't tell you whether we have that or not, because we don't set, I do this for the water and wastewater because of our bond payments and the reserves we have to have, especially in the wastewater side for PFA. So I do keep track of that a lot closer. But as far as the general fund, because of all the departments we have and everything else, I really haven't looked to see if we have. I'm gonna say we probably do.
Yes, I would say probably we do.
But
I
to
can't
what
say I've
extent?
looked,
So,
yeah.
are we way over, or are we close to, I don't know, not without actually going and looking at that. Which we can do, and that's why I also picked the number 50,000, because I feel pretty safe in saying, maybe it could be a lot more than that, but if you're getting the levy by putting, 50,000 from reserves into the revenue side, and getting it down to 4%, or even lower if you pull some of the stuff out of the street department, I think you're pretty safe. You wouldn't really need to go any higher than that. Maybe next year you'll want to do another 50, who knows? And having said that, we'll see if we can't figure out what our 6-month reserve should be. That shouldn't be too hard to do.
So is the council comfortable with that 4%? By transferring the reserves?
Well, we have until December.
You have until the end of September. Well,
We have to pass the proposed.
We have to do our preliminary budget tonight.
it would be nice if you did it tonight, I know.
Or, by the end of this month, we have to do our preliminary budget. But we have until the end of December
For the final.
for the final.
And you can go
But
lower.
at that time, we
you
can
can't go
only
higher.
drop it.
Yeah,
can't
we can
drop it.
only drop it. In the past, what we've done is we've passed our preliminary budget, and I can't remember a time when we've gone back and changed that, but,
Can't either.
well, we do have that option.
So, Mayor, what if we plugged in 25 instead of 50? It seems like a lot to me, 50.
$6.9.
And took away the skid steer.
Okay.
Take away the what?
Skid steer, the Bobcat.
It was 98. $5.78.
5.78.
5.78 increase.
Council?
The previous was 6 point, what was it? 6 point?
6.9. 6.93.
That's at 25,
Yeah.
not the 50.
Right.
50 was at 4 point.
Yeah, with 50 in there and a skid steer, it's 4. If you put that 50 back in and keep the skid steer out, you're probably gonna be almost zero.
Just do that, please, just so we can see it.
Okay, so skid steer's out. And put this back to 50. $2.8.
With, what were your line items there?
Basically, what I
Skid steer.
did there was I put the 50,000 transfer from the reserves back in, and I took left the skid steer out for this year.
How many years old is your current Bobcat?
I believe that is I'd have to look on your list there, Don.
I think I have his.
I don't have that on the typing right now.
Hang on, I.
More than 5?
Yes, yes, it's probably 10.
12.
Yeah, I think it should go back on the budget.
It's an 09, if I'm not mistaken.
What's that worth?
Fix a lot of hydraulic hoses for $55,000.
And alternators and not so much. We could probably get 15 to 20 for it.
Really?
They hold their value pretty nicely.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just know it, where I'm at, how often we have to turn ours over, and that's way sooner than you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, I mean, in my replacement schedule, we got a loader coming, you know, that's about the same vintage in the near future. That, you know, there's tractor, maybe not so much, but we got lawnmowers that get used, you know, that we already got thrown out of the so far, you know.
And if you keep throwing them out, they'll all come due at the same time, then it's really ugly.
And that's what's happening.
That's what's really ugly.
Everything is coming back to us.
We threw out a mower?
I don't think I think we didn't put it in this year. I had it in originally, and we were looking at something else to do with it. So.
Is the skid steer back in there now?
No.
Oh,
4%.
4%, yeah. Transferring to 50,000.
Right.
So going to 25,000 bumps that up to 6%, is that right?
It's 2%.
It doesn't make sense.
Taking this from 50 to 25?
With the skid in, yeah.
6.9,
7, essentially.
7%.
25,000 almost equates to the 3%. Almost. 2.8.
Skid steer is 55?
The lease payment on the skid steer is 98. It would be under a lease. Or we could pay cash 55, but that's gonna increase it quite a bit. I had the cost of it, the quote in the comment box. I showed you what the
Yeah.
full price was and then the lease. And I'm using the lease in the budget. I'm not using the full price of it.
Because that's how we normally operate anyway, so we lease all the equipment, right?
Lease purchase,
Yeah, right. Would you try to sell that Bobcat if a new Bobcat came? I mean, you wouldn't just have two then?
No.
Right.
Some days I'd like to, but for right now, I'd sell it.
What would you like to do, gentlemen?
I'd like to know, basically what, if we're, where we're at on that, 6 months or 3 months reserves. I think that would make a big difference in adding a whole 50 or dropping it. But that doesn't help us through tonight, getting this.
No.
Can you go back to the street department? Yeah, right there. I'll ask Brian, on that list there for 2023, how would you rate that? What would be your number one thing down to your, number 7 or number 8?
Well, we did that in our budget meeting, and I had the skid steer, the truck, and the dump box. But that was prior to the salt shed coming into play.
Okay.
But those are obviously going to be the top, because the number, even the dump box, could we get by another year? Absolutely. But that truck is a 2003, it's still in good shape except for the box. The box is starting to rust. Put a stainless box on it, that truck could go for a while. I mean, yeah, it's 20 years old, we just replaced a 99, but it would buy us some years before we need to repurchase a plow truck.
Can it
We
be
just put a
repaired?
new motor in this thing 2 years ago.
Can it be repaired, the box? I mean, welded, repaired?
It could, but it's just gonna continue to rust with the sand salt we use.
Basically, they weld patch them, and they're still thinning in areas that aren't showing yet.
Right. But again, could that wait? Absolutely. but
Hey, what's the word?
it's gonna come back again,
Yeah.
it's not leaving my list, you know.
If there's a hole in it, you're just salting and sanding more than you intended to
The
anyway.
frame and everything else.
Oh, I know. So I guess what he's saying is the salt box.
What's that?
Well, to answer, the question he asked you was which one? Well, it's the salt box, apparently.
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. If you guys don't like my idea, I'm not gonna feel one bit offended if you vote me down. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say, let's approve this budget here at, what is it, 6.93? That's $25,000 out of reserves? 50,000?
50.
Okay, 50,000 out of reserves,
Nope, nope.
No, no,
Nope,
no.
nope, it's 25.
25.
Right, at 50 was 4%.
We can adjust it downward
Yeah.
I'll second.
in December.
Was that your motion?
That's my motion,
As we see it?
as it is right now.
Yeah, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
It's all up for discussion and changes, but
We can drop it later.
yeah, we can drop it later.
Yeah. Discussion?
Don, Brent and I spent a lot of time getting it to this point. And we left some of the things on here because we needed to have this discussion in here with everybody about some of these items. And I think it's a good point that we look at these reserves that Mr. Runnigan brought up here. But to move this along, I mean, we've been here for an hour on this, and
Any more discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried. Okay, then, Don, the truth in taxation, you want to talk to that?
No, Danielle can.
Danielle, talk to that.
It just has to be announced at the truth and taxation meeting, when the truth and taxation meeting is, when you pass your budget, so I put it on there. So the truth and taxation meeting will be December 13th at 6 PM, and that's also on your tax statement.
We have to.
I'm for surely gonna forget by then.
We have to make a motion on that? We don't, okay. Okay.
But it'll be during our regular scheduled council meeting, so you don't even need to remember.
Okay, let's go on to item number 14, administrator report, Don.
Since the last meeting, I had a department head report and then worked with Danielle to set and gather up all the stuff for tonight's meeting. I did that research and compiling for the city council's request on the building project cost related to upper and lower floor. I held some economic development discussions with a potential business that wants to move out to the industrial park. We're gonna hopefully have something before the planning commission, then the council, maybe as soon as the end of the month, I don't know, we'll see. Met with our leasing company, they wanted to come over and see the couple of fire trucks that they've leased to us. They took photos of them and they'll probably start using them. They're nice pieces of equipment in some of their advertising. I met with Amy Baldwin to discuss the development and what might happen over at the old truck garage once they move out of there. She gave me a couple concepts that they put together at the county level to get housing out there. And I want to talk with Bob Schleman about them a little bit. One of them shows a cul-de-sac and the other one shows just an L-shaped street going through it. At some point, the council will see those two. I just got them, and talked to her about them a little bit, but I want to talk to Bob and Brian a little bit about the two concepts in getting water and sewer to that location, and how we'd work it through there. I attended the monthly 2024 project meeting, and also worked on establishing the beautification team for that 2024 project. Still looking for a couple of people. Met with MnDOT to discuss the salt sand property up off the frontage road to the northeast up there. And attended a virtual meeting with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, MESERB, and the MPCA regarding the PFAS, that testing and stuff that we have to consider. There'll be a revised memorandum of understanding that'll come out of that. Then discussions that the city eventually will get a chance to review. Spent time configuring a couple of laptops to make sure these new ones work from home if we need to. I worked on the 2023 budget revisions, attended a park board meeting, and drafted that letter that you guys approved to get sent to Department of Public Safety so we can hopefully get a DMV in town. That's my report.
Question for Don.
Thanks, Don. And a big thanks to Don and Steve and Brent for budget work. Agreed. A lot of hours.
Thank you. Item number 15, Mayor report. A few things in the last couple of weeks. I attended the City Trail Plan open house at the Fine Arts Auditorium at the high school here on September 1st, and to our surprise, it was a beautiful night, but there was 40 people in attendance, and it was well represented throughout our community and beyond. I also called the League of Minnesota Cities to report that the City of Pelican Rapids had passed an ordinance providing a moratorium on the sale of hemp-derived THC food and beverages within our city. I met on September 6th with the Superintendent Olson to talk about some of the equipment that we talked about this evening during the budget portion of our meeting. Attended 2024 Complete Streets Steering Committee meeting here at City Hall with Administrator Solga and Superintendent Olson and MnDOT via Zoom. Attended a meeting at the Pelican Rapids High School boardroom with staff from Otter Tail County and also the school. The school is looking to build a new concession stand bathroom complex at Chauncey Martin Field. They're going to tear down the older one. They plan on doing this next year, and they're looking for a partnership where the city can have their warming house up there and also a proposed trailhead. Because the facility, the bathrooms now are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That doesn't need to happen, but it'd be a good place. They're also talking about a shower facility where people got done biking, they could take a shower. Right now, if you're going to drive by there, most normal days, you'll see cars parked up there in the school parking lot. People are using that as a trailhead now.
Yeah.
Because it's close to the trail. And there'll be more on that. Representative from that meeting are coming to the next city council meeting to discuss that with you all. I did speak with Patrick Melvin of David Drone Associates regarding the applications for administrative position here with the city. I met with Administrator Solga to review the agenda for this evening's meeting. Attended a park board meeting yesterday, and today I attended the Otter Tail County Commissioners meeting regarding the cancellation of the forfeiture of the property with the old bowling alley, and there was no decision made at this point. It looks like it's going to happen, but it's moved to their next county commissioners meeting on the 11th of October. And I also attended a cannabis meeting at the Government Services Building today. The county is looking at putting a moratorium on cannabis HDH sales within Otter Tail County, and I reported what we had done here as a city. So you'll be hearing more about that in the future also. So that concludes my report.
Mayor, what did you say about the bowling alley?
That was cancellation of the forfeiture, because the state owns it now.
Yeah.
And it's in the county's hands. The Islamic Society want that for a
Yeah,
mosque.
yeah.
And the county's leading to doing that, but there was an application sent in
To the
for
state, huh?
forfeiture, but they didn't have supporting documents, so they have got to come up with supporting documents before it can be complete. And it looks like it's going to happen at the next county commissioners meeting.
Then it'll go back to be transferred back to the ownership?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Islamic Society out of Fargo Moorhead.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
thanks for that.
Okay, seeing no other business, or a motion to adjourn?
I would, yeah, so moved.
I will second.
Motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the same, meeting adjourned.